What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Gaelic Gridiron podcast, the premier American football podcast for fans in Ireland. Back after a crazy week 2 of the NFL, Jimmy English joined by Stephen Twist Kearns, and good to have Kevin Kelly back. He was missing in action last week. We had to get a super sub in at the last minute, 5 minutes before we started recording. So big shout out to Davog McKee for jumping in there. Kev, great to see you. How are you doing?
Yeah, good to be back. Definitely missed last week. I was pretty hyped about the Vikings, so nice to be back on this weekend to talk about the boys. So
we missed you for your bit of balance last week. I was getting texts and messages saying that was pretty much a Steelers podcast, which in fairness it was. So it's good to have you back. We did a bit of shit talking about the Vikings, that you weren't there to defend yourself. So we'll make sure to give you plenty of
after
time
week
to.
two, there's not much shit talking going on.
No,
so.
there's definitely not. Absolute upset over the Niners. Twist rocking the Rocky Blyer jersey. Excited for the watch party in a couple of weeks, Twist.
Absolutely. The announcement that Fast Willie Parker is joining James Farrier, two-time Super Bowl champions, rolling into Dublin on the 29th.
Two absolute Steelers legends coming to Dublin and Ireland for the Steelers watch party on the 29th, as you say. Tickets still on sale. It's going to be a great night. All three of us are going. It's going to be it's going to be mental.
Yeah. Like the last one was insane. This one is just going to get better, bigger and better. And hopefully the watch party isn't cursed. We can walk out beating the Colts.
I think if we go 0-2 for watch parties, it's going to be we might have to reevaluate.
Also, really quickly, what an absolute steal getting a pint of Guinness in Buskers in Temple Bar for €6 during the NFL window. Just saying, lads. That might have been the pick of the weekend.
Big shout out to the 49ers Ireland for having myself and Kev down on Sunday evening in Buskers on the ball. I mean, I haven't been in Buskers in years, and like when I walk downstairs, it's a really cool space and there's TVs everywhere. You know, you have your main game on Sky and you have Red Zone. It's definitely a fantastic spot in the city centre to watch an NFL game of a Sunday evening. And as you say, Kev, get your pint for €6. Like, you would not get that anywhere else in Dublin city centre right now.
I'll have to make my way in and watch a game in there. We should all go in again.
Well, we actually might have our own NFL watch spot in the works with one city centre location, so watch this space. Look, let's get into it. I mean, NFL week 2, maybe not as mental as the first week, but still lots of surprising results and lots of smackdowns. I mean, I think the NFC South has emerged as potentially one of the best divisions in the league. You look at what the Saints did against the Cowboys, 44-19. I mean, Derek Carr I think the Saints have always been sneaky good, but this year they've really emerged as a potential not only NFC contender, but also a Super Bowl contender perhaps. And Alvin Kamara, 4 touchdowns. I mean, just absolutely mental what's going on there.
Yeah, definitely. It's a big one to watch. Like, to go into Dallas, to go into the Cowboys' home, who were unbeaten for 16 straight home games, and to not only beat them, but like just absolutely destroy them. Like, Kamara couldn't be stopped, couldn't be contained. Prescott was making too many mistakes. The Cowboys' defense just didn't show up, and Derek Carr, like, celebrating, grabbing himself like Michael Jackson style. Like, he was out there having fun. He was like, this is just a game to me. Like, this is not a competition. I'm just out here to, make you guys look crap. And then afterwards, Saints fans having a parade outside the stadium, full brass bands, everything, like really rubbing it into the Cowboys. You'll love to see it.
You definitely do, Kev. I mean, for all the Cowboys kind of posturing and the fact that they paid Dak Prescott all that guaranteed money, it's not a great look when you're the highest paid quarterback in the league only puts up 2 touchdowns.
No, I think it's funny though, because this is Cowboys Nation. You know, one of my good friends who is a Cowboys fan, I texted him. I was a Sunday night and I was like, what the hell is going on here? And he was just like, oh, it's just upset. It's upset weekend. You look around the league, all the favorites have lost this weekend. And he made a point, but I'm also just like, this keeps happening to the Cowboys every year. Like,
they can't win the big games.
They cannot win the big game. Not that the Saints necessarily was looked at as a big game in their schedule this year, but they still are going into games where they're coming off like a good weekend last weekend. The Browns, they should just be able to carry that on. You know, they're coming into into AT&T Stadium there, and they should just be able to win that game, whether it be that they're the better team or that there's something else going on. Like, you're in your home stadium, it's your home opener, you gotta win that game.
Is Derek Carr making an early season case for MVP? Twist, I know you kind of broached that his name is definitely in the conversation, like you'd have to say.
Definitely, he's out there. He's improved greatly when you look at him last year. Now, obviously, it is only week 2, and everything needs to be taken with a grain of salt because it's still early days. You know, it is a 17-game season. But you look at him and you look at Baker Mayfield, like those two are really putting on a
Baker
show.
Mayfield, I mean, I know we touched on Baker last week as well. He's a whole different player this year. I think he's just turned a corner, and like Carr, he's playing loose, he's playing free, and I think that he's really tapped into a fantastic vein of form.
When you look at, you know, obviously let Kev get his, because I'm going to mention something that Kev's definitely going to talk about. But you look at Carr, you look at Mayfield, and you even look at Sam Darnold this week. They weren't out there playing a competitive game. They were out there having fun.
Yeah.
And you could see that in their body language, how they were managing the game, how they were throwing the ball. And I think that's a big thing. When a quarterback is out there and he's having fun, there's no pressure on him. He can make those, like, that's one of the reasons why Pat Mahomes is so good for so long. He's out there having fun. He's obviously, we'll get to the Chiefs later.
He didn't have fun on Sunday night.
But like even Sam Darnold, like that 97, was it 97-yard TD to Jet? Like, that was a fun throw. And like you could tell he loved that.
I think across the board, though, you look at those 3 teams that we just talked about. Like, we have the Buccaneers, we have the Saints, and the Vikings. 3 very, very well coached teams coming into the year. Like, I think that's what you have to look at off the back of last year. Is like the Bucs last year and Baker were definitely a team that people were eyeing up and saying, "Oh, these guys could be good," you know. And so with just the work that the 3 teams have done in the off season and the preseason, and their mini camps, all of that stuff, is like they were just came out and are ready to play football. And that is evident from the confidence that the teams are bringing into the games. Special teams are playing well. The defense is playing well. They came in ready. And I think that's been evident with those 3 specific teams.
Yeah, it's like I said, I mean, they've always been, in the past couple of seasons, they've always kind of been in the background of the NFC, but now they've really emerged as some of the better teams in the league. And I think the NFC is actually the better conference right now. And I know we keep saying it. It's only week 2. There's still a lot of football to be played. But just unpacking some of the recent performances. I mean, Kev, we touched there on the Vikings upsetting the 49ers. I mean, that was, I don't know if anyone saw that coming, really. You might have.
Well,
I certainly didn't.
If we want to rewind back to the predictions we did a couple of weeks ago, I'm pretty sure I called that one as a win. So
you kind of had to. You had no choice as a fan. You don't bet against your own team.
Yeah, it was funny. We were standing Twist in Buskers watching the game, and the 49ers were driving down the field, and Jimmy goes over. He walks over to get like a wide angle shot of a touchdown celebration, and I just go over to him. I was like, "What are you trying to record here?"
He was so upset. He was probably about 4 pints in though as well at that stage.
No, but for real though, I think just looking at the Vikings outfit, we've been, like I said, just very well coached, offensive, defense, special teams. Like obviously the special team coming up with the block and the turnover there, that was fantastic. You know, just in general, there was a lot of pressure on Purdy. And I think just, again, the 2 coaches talked about it, O'Connell and Brian Flores, just the noise in the stadium. It's like, you know, obviously our fans just really, really are quite passionate. And, you know, when you're in US Bank Stadium, that place gets loud. And so I think that might have just shaken Purdy a little bit. But again, I think it just comes down to the preparation and the coaching that they've had up to this point.
We've talked there about... Oh, go ahead, Twist.
I was going to segue into... Well, I wasn't going to segue. I was going to just very briefly touch on a random statistic, which might segue to another topic. Both Baker and Darnold both played for the Panthers, remember, way back when. And they combined between the 2 of them for 22 touchdowns and 19 interceptions. Since they've left the Panthers, they've combined for 46 touchdowns and 14 interceptions. So
when did Baker Mayfield play for the Panthers?
Ages ago.
Yeah, very, very briefly.
Yeah,
That's
it's
crazy. I
like
didn't know
that.
that.
That's how like that you forget it because it was such like an anomaly.
I
But
remember his
like
season for the Rams. He played really well in relief in Los Angeles, and I think that gave him the opportunity in Tampa Bay to kind of revive his career a little bit, which he's definitely done. Um, but yeah, I mean, segueing into the Panthers, nice to their twist, well done. We've talked about some of the best teams in the league in the NFC, and now we're looking at one of the worst teams in the NFC. And obviously, Bryce Young got benched during the week. Andy Dalton has been named the starter. I genuinely had no idea he was still in the league.
the
When
Red
I saw
Rocket survives.
when I saw his name pop up, I was like, how is he still hanging around? But you kind of have to you kind of feel bad for Bryce Young, Kev. I mean, you could see him walking off the field after throwing that last interception, and the look in his eyes was the look of a broken man. But I think he's been put in a very bad situation. His offensive line is absolutely terrible, and there's no real run game there. He has no receivers to speak of apart from Deontay Dropson, who, I mean, we know how that ended up in Pittsburgh. So at this stage, he's been benched now. He is a captain. Dave Canales has come out and said he is still the quarterback at the Panthers. But is his career in Carolina over, do you think?
I think even going a step further, his career in the NFL could be over.
Yeah.
I genuinely believe that, he's not done anything to this point that would prove to any quarterback coach that he is like ready to make it in the NFL. He's done nothing. Like there's not even been like hot flashes here and there of like bits of talent. He just has not looked like the quarterback he was in college. And like that, he was surrounded by probably one of the best college teams ever to exist in the NCAA. So it's like, even at the highest level in the NCAA, or not the NCAA, but the NFL, he should be able to produce to some sort of level. And he just has not. He's fallen short every week. And like Micah Parsons said it on his podcast, say that he doesn't think that Bryce has got the rub of the green or he's got the chance that he deserves. And I'm like, he's played 18 games at this stage. He's not proven himself. And how much longer do you let the organization keep failing and keep going in this direction? Because
Before
you're
moving
doing
on,
nothing for the fans, you're doing nothing for the city. I don't know. I think that the time is now for a change. I think get him maybe into some sort of protocol to try and get him back out on the field, maybe by week 6, 7 if things are looking better. But if things are starting to look better, why would you get rid of Andy Dalton?
Mm-hmm.
At that point, you're like, let's roll with it.
Yeah, it's a strange one, all right, because as you say, he was a product of Alabama, like one of the best college football teams of a generation, if not in history, with Nick Saban. And is it a case potentially that he was a product of a system in Alabama, and that system made him look good, or is he just not getting the right supports in Carolina with the pieces around him?
I think he's just not getting the right support. I agree partially with Kev. He's definitely done in Carolina.
Yeah.
I don't think he's yet done in the NFL. I think somebody will take a gamble on him purely because he was scouted as first round talent for a reason. He performed in Alabama for a reason. He just has a terrible support system in Carolina. As said last week, Carolina probably one of the worst managed teams currently in the NFL. I mean, I'm going to go back to Baker Mayfield again. Look how bad he was with the Browns. Now, he's gone on a bit of a journey to get where he is now, but you gave him time, you gave him the chance, and he's developed now.
Playmakers, you gave him a decent head coach.
Exactly. So I wouldn't write Bryce off just yet, but if he goes to another team, whether as part of a trade or he gets cut, he's not getting his fifth-year option picked up. I'm going to call that out right now, unless he does something phenomenal like get the Panthers to the playoffs before then. But I'd say he'll be a journeyman for a year or two before he gets another job as a starter. But someone will take a punt on him because quarterbacks are like gold.
A premium in the NFL. And do you think now the Panthers will try and salvage the rest of their season with Andy Dalton, or do they start tanking right now at this point and try and pick up? There's not really any decent quarterbacks coming out, I don't think, in 2025.
the only thing you could do is, I mean, if they're going to tank, it would be to tank to try and build out the offensive line to give Bryce a chance. Or get a playmaker, get a wide receiver, get a running back, get something to take pressure off him, give him the time he needs in the pocket. Other than that, you may see him part of a trade package on draft day.
It'll be interesting to keep an eye on that situation anyway and see what develops there. But we've spent enough time on the NFC, I think. We move to the AFC now, which is a couple of shootouts on Sunday evening. The Chiefs, in my mind, and I know they had a slow start to the season last year as well before absolutely going off, leading to that dramatic conclusion in the Super Bowl in Las Vegas. But I mean, Patrick Mahomes was definitely not himself against Cincinnati on Sunday. I mean, the Chiefs, in my mind, looked mortal. I mean, 2 interceptions. It was a very, very tightly contested match.
Well, it looked to me again. It looked very similar to Burrow and Mahomes kind of back when it was the AFC Championship game. Like, Burrow's coming in and just absolutely balls out and genuinely made Mahomes look second best to him that day. And I think that Burrow did start out the game in that same regard, like this past weekend. I think that he really made the Chiefs pay for a lot of sloppy defense. And I just think that he outballed Mahomes across the day. And, it came down to another one of those penalty calls. Everyone's like, oh, was it a call? Was it not? It was pass interference. I think that anybody who isn't a Bengals fan is going to say that. And I'm sure there's still Bengals fans out there saying, yeah, it was. But, I think it's just the Chiefs' ability to stay in a game.
Yeah.
I think that's what's going to make them stand out this year. They may not look pretty. They may not look good, but they are consistently always there. And they're 2-0 now against two of the best teams, or could be the two of the best teams in the AFC. So where do we go from here? Because you can't beat them looking good. You can't beat them looking bad. They're just continuing to steamroll ahead. And, until somebody shows us differently, I don't know who's going to beat them.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't put the Chiefs away, you're going to be in trouble, because that's one of Pat Mahomes' best characteristics, I think, is his tenacity, his ability to just hang about and make plays, even without, I mean, we were saying before we came on, Twist, that Travis Kelce has been a non-factor throughout the first 2 weeks. I mean, he's just disappeared completely at the time that the Chiefs perhaps need him the most, because they're without Isaac Pacheco now. Marquise Brown is out as well for the season. So it's at times like these that they need their all-star tight end to step up. And there's a little bit of chat going around that Kelsey's mind is elsewhere. He's distracted, and this, in fact, could be his last season in the NFL.
Well, I wouldn't, unless barring a serious injury, I'd say he's going to keep playing a little bit longer. He is obviously one of the, if not the premier tight end in the league.
Is he though anymore?
Is he though? Like you said, Brock Bowers is looking like he's had more.
Brock Bowers, as a rookie out of Georgia, is fast becoming one of Minshew's favorite targets.
Oh, I know, but right now as it stands, Brock Bowers has a couple of games, Kelsey has a couple of Super Bowls.
True.
So, up there in that respect, I'd still say he's a properly premier tight end.
Top 3.
Up there. Top 3 up there with Kittle, him and Kittle up there. But the thing is, I would rather Kelsey, if I'm a Chiefs fan, I'd rather Kelsey get all these woes and slow starts out at the start of the season and have him red hot going into the back end of the season when you need him most, when you need those big, chunk yards to get on 3rd and long, And you are right, you kind of do need to put Pat Mahomes away early, but you really need to put him away. Not just 1 or 2 touchdowns. You really need to bury the Chiefs 3 or 4 touchdowns in a hole to stop Pat Mahomes coming back, because as suffering Bills fans know, Pat Mahomes, even if you bury him 1 or 2 touchdowns, he's coming back and he's beating you, and he's beating you even in overtime.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, they have a lot of injuries. They are going to look, very mortal to start with. They've just picked up Kareem Hunt to replace Isaiah Pacheco.
Saw that.
Whether or not he'll be up to speed going into next week, probably not going to happen. Probably be the week after he's up to speed. But they still have weapons. They still have speed. Until somebody like the Bengals and the Ravens both took them down. Like, who's next? Like, the next team that you're looking at, powerhouse that would have to beat them to convince people that they're mortal would be like the 49ers, the Lions. One of those two would have to take them down to really show that, yes, they can be beat.
And even without Pacheco at running back, I believe they still have Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I think he's still an option for them, so could rely on him a little bit more. Going to have to start relying more on Xavier Worthy, who had a great start of the season against the Ravens and then went quiet last week. So it's the AFC is definitely the slower burn to start the season, I think, but it'll be interesting to keep an eye there and see how that develops. Now, talking about injuries and the key injuries to the Chiefs players, we've actually seen a number of star players have injuries to start the season. I mean, Justin Jefferson, after that touchdown, Kev came off the field with a quad injury, I think. And you have both of the Rams star wide receivers in Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp out injured at the minute. So that's obviously a concern for them. And we saw how much they struggled against the Cardinals on Sunday. Christian McCaffrey is out for the 49ers. I mean, what is going on around the league with all these injuries? Is it just a coincidence, or is it conditioning, Kev, do you reckon, is an issue?
To me, I don't know. It could it be something to do with the actual heat that the guys are playing in right now? There's probably some dehydration going on around the league just with how hot some of those games are outside. The Justin Jefferson thing doesn't sound like it's going to be much of an issue. Just sounded like it was more of like a quad contusion. I think that's what they were calling
which is the medicinal term for a bruise, if anyone's wondering.
Exactly. Yeah. So again, that's not too much to worry about. But then you have the bigger those bigger injuries that are going to sideline people for 6, 7, 8 weeks. They typically, you start to only notice them coming in at week 7, 8, 9.
It's very early in the season to have these big. I mean, there's some big names who are out injury. I mean, Christian McCaffrey's on IR.
Yeah, so he's gone for at least 4 more weeks. Yeah. So 2 of them, I think we've said, is out for at least week. At least.
Yeah. At least week 8, 2 will be on.
Two is a wider concern because how many times does he have to get his skull rattled before he decides enough is enough? I mean, there were serious conversations going on about, and I think he'll come back and finish the season out, and I think he'll continue to play. But the question is, when is enough?
Yeah, it's one of those situations because every pundit now who has ever played the game and who stepped out early or retired early, whatever the case may be, or was forced into retirement, all of them guys are you gotta put it down, man. You gotta put yourself first, you gotta put your family first, and it's just interesting to see so many of these players come forward and say this, and for him to not even consider it.
Yeah.
Now, we're obviously sitting on the other side of it saying, he's never considered. Of course he has considered it, but for him to not just be this is way more serious than any game I could potentially play. It's if your team is leading up to a Super Bowl and you coming back could be the difference between winning a Super Bowl and not, and it's well, look, if you get hit in the head again, you could have permanent brain damage. I'm sure any quarterback would say, I'm going to take that chance if it means winning a Super Bowl. But it's week 2 of the NFL season. The Dolphins aren't a team that have been a perspective could potentially win the Super Bowl this year.
God, no.
So at this point, I'm what are you playing for if your health and safety is not of paramount?
The fact he's had 2 fencing incidents where your hands curl up because that's a traumatic brain injury. He's had 2 traumatic brain injuries. And even Christopher Nowinski, the former WWE wrestler, who's working with teams and programs around the country to raise awareness of CTE. Him and his register, all his medical experts come out and it's Tua needs to hang it up.
Yeah,
he's 26. He's young. If he stops playing now, that's fine. He could get another one of those incidents, and he's definitely going to have serious mental issues as he gets older. He's only 26. I mean, he has millions of dollars. It's not the money. I know it's not money for some people. It's about the passion for the game and stuff. Well, as Kev mentioned, passion of the game versus your family and
Yeah.
your ability to
And like
enjoy
it
your
is
retirement.
only a game at the end of the day. Like literally,
When you retire,
it
you're
is an
gonna
it's an entertainment, industry.
yeah. Like
That's what
the
it's.
way you look at it is when you retire, do you want to be able to remember your grocery
Mm,
lists or remember directions to your home? Do you want to be able to hold something with your hand shaking? You know, do you want to not have violent outbursts? Stuff like that. That's all related to CTE. Or do you want to experience that? It's literally that. Like
But if
oh,
you're
it's
the
a grown ass
NFL,
man. It's
though,
his choice.
if you're the NFL at this stage, though, you've seen Tua go through this 3, 4 times now. Not just him. Like there's numerous players that go through the same experience. Like especially with a reoccurring situation like Tua, take him off the field. It's not a good look for the sport. It's not a good look for the NFL. It's like you guys need to step in and say, okay, enough is enough.
yeah.
We need to protect our players. There is a PFA there for a reason. It's like, they're wanting to like create more opportunity for young players to come into the game and to like experience it at a younger age. It's just like if you're watching that on a Sunday as a parent, what sort of person would say, yeah, kid, I want you to do that?
At least teach him to do heads up tackling. For the love of God, teach
But
him.
that's the thing is, it wasn't. I watched the hit that Damar Hamlin did. It wasn't. It was. There was no head-to-head contact. It was
Yeah,
literally
no, but it
his
was
knee
like
or his lower body.
Yeah, Tua lowered his head into Damar's like
Exactly.
midsection. So it's like Tua needs to do a course on heads up tackling, like heads
Or
up.
heads up falling in this case, or heads up slide.
Yeah,
So I think he was.
Sliding, like,
I
yeah,
think he
teach him to
was
slide.
sliding.
For the love of God, teach him to slide.
Yeah, it's. I mean, we've all seen not just in previous generations, but in this generation, the effects of CTE. I mean, I hate to touch on it, but Aaron Hernandez was a pure case of CTE. Antonio Brown acting, he's lost the plot, and that's pure.
I mean, the biggest one is, as a Steelers fan, Mike Webster,
Yeah,
the scamper
exactly.
for the Super Bowl, 4-time Super Bowl champions. The guy in the start of the concussion film with Will Smith.
Yeah,
Like that's all exactly what happened to him on the field. But his life went like, it's part and parcel of the sport, but it is down to the NFL to follow their concussion protocol to look after the health and safety of the player. And I mean, as Dolphins front office have said, he's out for at least till week 8, but there is no timetable on his return. They're going to talk to him. They're going to walk him through the process. They're not going to push him back out in the field.
And that's great. And you have to, I genuinely love how far the NFL has come in terms of player safety. And in terms of putting these protocols in place and actually acknowledging, okay, this is a dangerous sport. So hopefully it's not just a lip service and they actually do look after their players. But as you say, Kev, I mean, the Dolphins are so far this season, and especially now, they're not going to be in any real contention for playoffs down the stretch. So,
who is their backup quarterback actually?
Skylar Thompson, I believe,
right.
is
yeah.
starting a quarterback, and I'm not sure.
Just wondering, it's like, where does their season go from here?
Yeah, I'm not sure if they've signed. Yeah, exactly. I don't even know who they've brought in to act as.
They should sign Ryan Tannehill. He's a product of their system. He's sitting at home waiting for.
I heard Bryce Hill's on, or Bryce is on the market.
Yeah, ask for the trade.
No, dire straits for the Dolphins. Well, enough of that, I suppose, doom and gloom. We wish Tua all the best, of course, and all the injured players, and hopefully they can get back to the field soon. But it's a case of next man up, and especially just want to mention Jordan Mason for the 49ers, who's had a breakout couple of weeks because of the injury to Christian McCaffrey. So it's always interesting, and of course I suppose the biggest opportunity that was earned from an injury was Tom Brady with the Drew Bledsoe injury back in 2001. So it's one man's loss is another man's gain, unfortunately. But onto a more pleasant topic now, and that is the fact that we in perhaps by the end of the week we could have not one but 2 active Irish NFL players. Again, as a result of an injury to a current player, Graham Gano, injured over the weekend for the Giants, who of course have Derry's Jude McAtamney on the practice squad. He did clear waivers before the season start and landed back in the Giants practice squad. Could potentially be in line to be elevated to the active roster before the weekend. And now I know the Giants have brought in several veterans to try out. But I mean, Twist, there's a real opportunity here, or a real chance that we could be seeing Jude on the sidelines on Sunday.
Kind of depends. Like Ian Rappaport reported just before we start recording that the Giants have signed Greg Joseph to the team. Now, whether he's the starting kicker or not remains to be seen. They may give it to Jude because he has the experience with the system. He knows the playbook. He knows all of the what happens if the snap goes wrong, the fire drills, if you will. So he may get the nod over him. It could be that they're just bringing in him because they don't feel like Jude's a rookie. Do we bring in a rookie? Now, it is the Giants. They're not great. So, bias aside, us being Irish, I say give Jude the chance. You've nothing to lose. I mean, you put up 3 touchdowns on the Commanders and didn't let him to score, and you still lost, and you became the first NFL team in history to do that. So, get someone on the field who can kick the ball.
Yeah.
Gano's out, give Jude the shot. That's my vote. But signing Greg Joseph, remains to be seen. It'll probably be a Friday announcement.
Yeah.
We're going to find out.
We'll have all the Twitter notifications on come Friday. Kev, what do you reckon? Does he have a fighting chance?
I think I'll go back to kind of what I said the last day we were talking about the kicking lads, is that I think just coaches and special teams and these units are going to stick to. I know Jude has obviously been through the Rutgers system there, and so he's more kind of used to the American football games, like just the atmosphere, the day that's in it. Like he's going to be more used to it. So in that regard, maybe I think he could get a chance, but I don't know why you would sign a player like Greg Joseph, who has tons and tons of experience of successful kicking, if you have a kicker there on site and on campus that is ready to go, is in your system. So there's two sides of it. Like, again, like putting biases aside, I'd love to see him get picked, but I still see it going the way of Greg Joseph, unfortunately.
Yeah. Perhaps just not enough experience in the NFL itself. I mean, it's all well and good having being in the Giants system and, being used to their calls and special team approaches and stuff. But I mean, he can't beat the experience, and he might have got a bit during the preseason, but I still think he needs to sit a bit more, perhaps. I mean, it's the same story with Charlie Smith. I mean, I personally think he's a better kicker than Blake Grupe, because I watched Grupe in college, but all fairness to Grupe, he's done a good job so far this season. But again, it's going to come down to experience, right? Pure experience.
Pure experience, or as you said, injury.
Yeah.
Like if like Grupe, or Joseph now both get injured, you're just going to have to take the chance with your practice squad player because they're on the practice squad. They're fair game for any NFL team who wants to poach them.
Well, look, we'll be keeping a close eye on that, as I'm sure the entire Irish American football community will be towards the end of the week. Now, looking ahead quickly to this weekend's games, week 3 coming up very quickly. A couple of interesting fixtures. Not a huge amount that kind of stood out to me, really. Some kind of ones that might be a little bit quieter. I think I saw the Jets and the Patriots, and I was like, I'm okay. But I mean, Vikings and Texans, that's going to be an interesting one. Both teams coming in undefeated. There's a couple of, a few 2-0 teams who are going to be squaring off, and something has to give. Kev, after the upset on the the upset at home over the 49ers, you have CJ Stroud next up. What are your thoughts there?
I'm going to stick to my initial kind of prediction on this. So I think we're going to take a win here again. I think with the noise in US Bank Stadium, with that setup we've had, with just like everything up to this point, there's been I've been quite speculative of like how good we could actually be with the coaching that's there, with the kind of leadership in the building. We have looked really, really good this season. Now, obviously, I said last week, it did definitely look across the league. It looked like it was kind of upset city in a way. Like a lot of the teams who were favorites did end up losing. So, I would like another solid week where the defense balls out. I think that at some point Sam Darnold will come under pressure and he will have this kind of like, moment, like this is going to get real difficult. But I think having kind of that home stretch for a little bit where we get to kind of get familiar with the systems, all of that, I think, we're in a really good spot going forward. We could be, 4-0 after 4 games, or we could be 3-1, any of those places would be a really, really nice spot to land at,
You're not going to complain about being 3-1 after 4 weeks of the or even
No.
being to a 2-0 start. But I think the fact that the Texans have 2 incredible wide receivers in Nico Collins is number 1, obviously, and then you have what's his face,
Tank Dell.
No, Tank Dell, of course. He's number 3, but you have. Oh, he came from the Vikings last season. Or sorry, he came from the Bills via the Vikings. Stephon Diggs. I mean, he's got off to a pretty good start. I think he had 2 touchdowns against the Bears as well.
Well, to be honest with you, Jim, I'm more worried about Danielle Hunter on their edge rush, because I like, that's one thing. Like, I know last week they had Bosa there, who was like tearing at the bit trying to get to Sam Darnold, but I think just Danielle Hunter, after being with the Vikings for the past number of years, he's going to know what system Flores has. He'll have that. I think he'll have a bit more of an edge, so that might create a little more of like a challenge for Sam Darnold. But again, I think that nothing that anybody can throw at the defense right now is something that Flores isn't ready for.
Yeah,
he just seems to be on top of things and just is really regimented with what he's doing with that system.
You're going with the home team. You're going with your Vikings.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I just noticed the Duff hat, by the way. Where did you get that?
Universal Studios.
Duffman, can't breathe. Oh no.
It's a good beer.
I'll take your word for it. Twist, we also have a tricky game for the Steelers this weekend against the Chargers. It's the home opener, which is great. But historically, over the past couple of seasons, the Chargers have given us trouble. And I think Quentin Johnson is going to prove tricky for our defense this season and this week. Joey Porter Jr. obviously will be all over him, and he completely shut down the Broncos' star wide receiver, who's Cortland Sutton.
Yeah.
Is it going to be a similar case this week where Porter is able to do the same for Quentin Johnson, or do you see them giving us trouble?
I can see Porter shutting down Johnson as well. He is a shutdown corner. Obviously, I'm going to, talk up JPJ. He's going to do his job. He, controlled something against the Broncos, kept him under control the whole game. My concern is just Justin Herbert in general. If our defense can keep him bottled up, if they can keep him under pressure, and if they can keep him from scoring more than 10 points, then we have a shot. But if they go up by 2 scores, even 3, even if they go up 17, even 21,
trouble.
It's going to be a struggle for us to claw that back. I know Tomlin rides the hot hand. Justin Fields' hands are lukewarm. He looked good in the first half against the Broncos, abysmal the second half.
In fairness, though, I mean, there was 2 massive plays called back for penalties that...
Oh, I get that. Yeah, I know. George Pickens,
It should have been... That was... I said it on the Steelers podcast yesterday. I'll say it again. There's no way in hell that was offensive pass interference. One of the worst calls. It was even worse than TJ's offside call the week before. Honestly, it was atrocious.
Well, head of officiating said on the commentary that it wasn't pass interference and it shouldn't have been called, but it was called, so we can't reverse that. But we need to keep Herbert under wraps, need to keep him under control. TJ needs to do what TJ does, which is wreck the game.
Exactly.
If they can do that, if we keep the Chargers from going up to a double-digit score, we have a chance, because we struggle to score double digits.
Yeah.
Optimistic, we can come out 3-0. Realistic, we're going 2-1.
I think the Chargers might. It's a similar situation to the Vikings and the Texans. It's 2 undefeated teams thus far coming in, and something's got to give. Before we wrap up, I didn't really have time to look at the schedule earlier. Is there any other kind of exciting games that stand out or ones to watch for fans? Twist is nodding his head there. Go on, go for it.
That everybody, if your team isn't playing or if it's not on when your team is late game or early game, whatever. Cardinals Lions.
Yeah, actually, that's going to be a great game.
Ravens Cowboys.
Yeah,
because Cowboys are going to want to smack down for the beating they just took from the Saints. The Ravens are 0-2.
Yeah.
Looking at the Ravens' schedule, they could finish 0-4 after week 4, which is unheard of for the Ravens. They haven't started 0-2 in years. They're now 0-2. The Cowboys could put the Ravens deep in the basement of the AFC North. But the one to watch for definitely is Cardinals-Lions.
Yeah, Kyler Murray had a great game. Absolutely balling it. I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr., his first catch was ridiculous. His second catch was even better, I think, because he had the pace of mind or the instinct to stretch Kevin and extend for the score. And I think Kyler Murray heard him loud and clear about not getting the ball enough and just completely force fed him in the first half anyway.
Yeah, and it's great to see. I think it's great to see that they just kind of starting to click, and you start to see that talent of the Harrison Jr. family coming through again. It's fantastic to see that lineage now. But yeah, for sure that game is one, especially after the way the Lions lost last week. Dan Campbell seems to take it pretty personally that it was his mistake that lost him the game.
Yeah. I think they're both 1-1. I think the Lions won last weekend. They lost to the Rams the week before. Who did they remind me who the Lions played last weekend?
Buccaneers.
Bucks. Lost to the Bucks. Yeah.
Lost 2016.
And I also have to look at the Lions, right? I just want to go back to Caleb Williams. He didn't look anyway kind of phenomenal last weekend. He kind of got outplayed, and this was kind of my concern with the Bears was that coming into the season, all the talk was they could be Super Bowl potential if Caleb Williams is X, Y, and Z, and I think he's just trying to do too much, or I think there might be a little bit too much expected of him.
100%.
Where he's trying to extend those plays like Mahomes does, and he's just not there yet. You can't just make it up in this league, unfortunately, and so it'll be interesting. I'm just interested because obviously it's an NFC North team. Never want to see the Bears doing well, but definitely interesting to always follow, especially with a prospect like Caleb Williams is.
I just hope that Caleb Williams doesn't find himself in a similar situation that Justin Fields found him in, where they drafted him and then didn't give him any support. But no, definitely so many young players who are now beginning to emerge in the league, which is fantastic to see, and we look forward to continuing to watch them. I mean, I can't believe it's 2 weeks already, lads. Absolutely flying by. Before we finish things up, any final thoughts, boys?
It's great to see that the Irish NFL scene is popping. To be honest, it's like you've been around to a couple of different spots in Dublin now, and I know that there's a couple of different places around the country, but just having been in the city and kind of in the last couple of weekends with the college football first 2 weeks of the NFL season, it's just great to see that there's a lot of interest and a lot of people wanting to get together for more days like that. It's
great seeing fans coming together. And after I popped into to Buskers on the Ball, I went across briefly just to the Woolshed, which is one of the OG American football spots in Dublin and in Ireland, and for the UK and Ireland Jets watch party. So shout out guys for having me there. And there was Jets, and there must have been 30 or 40 Jets fans, not just from Ireland, but from all over the world who had come together. So I completely agree. It's for NFL fans. It's in Ireland. It's so cool to see that the sport is finally coming on and that places are finally beginning to recognize that that we're onto something here. Let's grow this, So we'll definitely have to get together soon for an NFL game watch.
We have to. I mean, we're Steelers fans, but we have to give a shout out to the Galway Browns as well.
Absolutely, yeah. The Galway Browns backers, who have, I mean, they were even saying that they have Browns fans who are visiting the area, coming down to their watch parties, and I think they must have had 20 as well down there in Galway in Ayr Square over the weekend. So, if you want to have your NFL watch party shouted out or promoted, just drop us a message, and we'll be happy to do so. But for now, lads, we are at time. Thank you very much again for your time. And look, enjoy the weekend ahead of NFL action, and I'll see you soon.